All right, so let's talk grades and grading. And I'll be upfront with you and let you know that the grading system I use for this course is really unconventional. It's not like the grading systems used in your other courses, unless those courses are with me. So you want to pay really careful attention to everything I go over here in this video. And if something's not clear or you have questions, pop on over to the Canvas discussion board and post your question in questions about the course, and I'll answer it. All right, so even though the grading system for this course is unconventional, it is nothing to fear because it totally works in your favor. I ask students at the end of every semester in an anonymous survey whether or not I should keep this grading system or go to something more conventional, more traditional. And overwhelmingly, they have been saying over the years, no, keep this grading system. And I ask them why. And they say, because with this grading system, I can pop into the Canvas grade book, look at what I've submitted, and know exactly where I'm at in the course on any given day. And I can also know exactly what it is that I need to do to walk out of this course with the grade that I want. All right, so the grading system is unconventional, but it works in your favor as long as you know how to make the grading system work for you. And that requires that you understand how the different features of this grading system work. First thing to keep in mind is that none of your assignments are going to get letter grades. So it's not the case that you're going to get an A on something or a C on something when you turn in your thought primer, or you're going to get a B on your argument constructions. Instead, each one of your assignments will earn some number of points, and then those number of points will then average into a percentage for that category of assignments. So your thought primers are each worth 2 points each. And at the end of the semester, we'll add up all of your points for those thought primers and then translate that into a percentage score, like 80% or 92%. And we'll say, like, hey, you earned a 92% on your thought primers. Okay? Most important point to keep in mind, though, is this, is that your assignment categories don't really have anything to do with one another. And what I mean by that is this, is that it might be the case in one of your courses that the instructor says, you know, the exams are worth 50% of your course grade, essays are worth 40%, and your participation's worth 10%. And it may be the case, too, that you kind of fall down on your exams. You don't do so hot on your exams. You're down to that, maybe like a D range on your exams as an average. But you're stoked because you always participate in class and you rocked it on the exams. And so you know that even though you got a really low score on your exams, like a D, you're not totally sunk because the strength of your essay and participation scores can kind of drag up that D or prevent that D from causing your whole course grade to collapse in on itself. And so you can kind of see there where your assignment categories of participation, essays, and exams are kind of working together and compensating for one another. And that can't happen in our course, okay? So we have thought primers, quizzes, and argument constructions. Each of those three areas exist as totally separate entities and can't compensate for one another. And that's super important to keep in mind because you're not going to be able to have poor performance in one area, thought primer, quiz, or argument construction, be made up for by superior performance in another area. So you've got to keep your eye on all three of these areas for the duration of the course. All right, so let's get into some particulars here. You got about 25 thought primers, 22 quizzes, and 3 argument constructions you're going to do this semester. And I've been at this long enough to have an idea in my mind of what it looks like when you do your thought primer satisfactorily. In other words, I can look at all your thought primers at the end of the semester and say, like, yeah, it's okay. Maybe it's not lighting the world on fire, but it's okay. It meets my expectations. Or maybe I look at your argument constructions and I think, like, ooh, boy, I have this idea in my mind of what it looks like when you get to the end of the semester and have done an okay job on your argument constructions. And sadly, this isn't it, okay? It nearly meets my expectations. It's close, but it's just not quite there. Or, what'll probably be the case for you, I'm sure, is we'll look at your thought primers, or your quizzes, your argument construction, and say, like, oh my gosh, you rocked this. I have this expectation for what it looks like when somebody does okay on this assignment category, and you actually exceeded those expectations. Or, sadly, not you. We might look at your performance at the end of the semester on your thought primers and think, nope, not close. This isn't in the range of meeting my expectations. Okay? And it's these 4 descriptors, exceeding, meeting, nearly meeting, and not meeting expectations, that's really going to be the driver for determining your final course grade. Okay? And so it has to do with my expectations. And so you're sitting there thinking to yourself, like, okay, great, dude. You've got these expectations that you're expecting me to rise to and meet or exceed, and I have no idea what those expectations are, so this isn't really working for me yet. All right. So let's get that cleared up. So on your thought primers, if we get to the end of the semester and the average of your thought primers is at least 80% or higher, we're going to give you the letter E on your thought primer category. We're going to mark a little E next to your thought primers. And that means you exceeded expectations for your thought primers. If we look at that collection of thought primers and we see that it's averaged out to be somewhere between 70 and 79%, we're going to mark a little M next to it. We're going to say, yeah, you met expectations. You're not winning any gold star ribbons here for your performance on thought primers, but it's not bad. It's perfectly fine, perfectly acceptable. On the other hand, if we look at your thought primers and we see that, oh boy, this is between 60 and 69%, this is really close to meeting my expectations, but not quite. You get an N. This is nearly meeting my expectations, but not quite. And then this won't happen to you. But if somebody were to have their thought primers fall below 65%, we give it a D. Not D as in letter grade, D as in this doesn't meet expectations. And then you can see a similar kind of pattern with your quizzes and your thought argument constructions, right? So you've got these three assignment areas, argument constructions, quizzes, and thought primers, and each one of those assignment areas is going to earn either an E, an M, an N, or a D at the end of the semester. And it's going to get those letters depending on what percentage your assignments within each category averages out to. And we're going to use those letters to then translate your performance in this course into a letter grade that appears on your transcript. Okay? So let's say you get E's on all of your assignment categories. You thought primers, quizzes, argument constructions. If you get E's in each one of those, you wind up with an A on your transcript. If you got E's in two of the areas, if you exceeded expectations in thought primers and quizzes, but only met expectations on your argument constructions, you'd still get an A minus. Okay? And so you can see how the combination of those three letters are going to turn into a grade that can appear in your transcript. So let's look at an example. Let's say we get to the end of the semester and we average out your thought primers and you averaged 82% on your thought primers and you averaged 78% on your quizzes and you averaged 86% on your argument constructions. What would your final course grade be? If you said EEM with an A minus, you get it, okay? Now what's interesting here is if you look at your thought primers and your argument construction scores, they're okay. They're good, actually, better than okay. They're in that 80% range. And you didn't light the world on fire with your quizzes, but you still wind up with an A minus in the course, okay? You didn't even get an over 90% in any of these three areas, but you still wound up with an A minus in the course. See why students like this grading system? All right, let's look at another example. Let's say it's the case that you get to the end of the semester and you rocked it on your thought primers with a 96%. Quizzes did a good job at 82%, but you kind of fell down on your argument constructions and got a 67%. What would be the three letters, E, M, N, and D, that we would attach to these areas here? Yeah, so we're looking at an EEN. Okay, you exceeded in two areas, nearly met in another area. But you'll notice over here, there's no combination that includes N. So what would your course grade be? Do you say D? No. An N in any one of the areas drops your whole course grade to a C, as long as the other two areas are both an E. Okay? So in this case, somebody rocked it on the thought primers, did a good job on the quizzes, but probably, if my experiences in the past are a reliable predictor, probably just kind of flaked out and didn't really put much time and energy into the argument constructions. And you can see that that had a pretty profound impact on their grade because they were setting themselves up for an A, and they're going to wind up with a C in the course. Now take a look at this performance. Let's say we get to the end and you've got 88% on your thought primer, 66% on the quizzes, and 68% on the argument constructions. What would be the three letters that we would associate with your performance? ENN, yuppers, that would be what you would wind up with. But again, you don't see any combination of ENN over here. So we have to have another rule. The rule is this: an N in two or more areas or an N in combination with two M's drops your course grade to a D. Oh, you want to avoid the N's. They're deadly. Okay, so we don't want any N's at the end of the semester. Now look at this person, 95% on thought primers, 99% on quizzes. I mean, that's about as rocking it as you can expect one to be. but then again, just kind of flaked it on the argument constructions, okay? And I say flaked it because if they were doing this well in the thought primers and quizzes, they knew how to do the work for the argument constructions, but probably procrastinated or maybe just didn't turn something in. And you can see here that now we've got an EED, okay? And this is deadly. You don't want to get a D in any, you don't want to does not meet expectations at the end of the semester, because a D in any one area drops your whole course grade down to a D, and you don't want that. And you certainly don't want to get 2 Ds, because then your whole course grade drops down to an F, all right? Okay, so this is how your final course grade is going to be determined. It's going to be determined by each of these 3 categories and whether or not they exceed, meet, nearly meet, or do not meet my expectations, and those expectations are totally driven by percentage values, all right? So all of this is, of course, laid out in your syllabus, which you can access by clicking the syllabus link in Canvas and going to the grades and grading section, and all of this is there for you if you want to review this more carefully. All right, so stay engaged. What do I mean by that? I think the most important, that's the wrong way to say it, I think the highest predictor of your success is your ability to stay engaged with the course material on a week-to-week basis. Each week you're going to be doing 2 thought primers and taking a couple of quizzes. And those thought primers and quizzes are going to be your primary learning devices, learning tools, okay? So if you're doing those thought primers and you're doing those quizzes, you will learn. It will be impossible for you to not learn if you're doing those assignments. And if you're learning by doing those assignments, you'll know what it is that you need to do to complete your argument construction successfully. The only way I see folks really fall down in this course is when they allow themselves to get behind. And then there'll be this like mad dash to try to catch up. And, you know, we'll do all the positive affirmations. You can do this, you know, just come up with a plan. You'll be offering lots of positive affirmations for yourself. I can do this. But the reality is it's very rare, it has happened, it's very rare that when somebody gets more than like 2 weeks behind that they're able to really catch up and get back in the game. And each week builds on the week previous, so it's not like you can just skip ahead. You've got to take the assignments in order. And so if you can stay engaged on a week-to-week basis and do whatever you have to make sure that you are turning in those thought primers on time, the better. Okay, so make a commitment to stay engaged with this course, and anytime you run into questions or you need help or you just want something clarified, you have to email me, all right? It kills me when a student emails me and says, hey, can we hook up and have a Zoom chat? And they begin the Zoom chat by saying, oh, I meant to email you, you know, last week when I was really struggling, but I didn't want to bother you. It's like, oh. It's like, you gotta email me. I'm sitting here staring at the wall, waiting for you to shoot me a message saying, help. Because that's what I like to do, help you, all right? So if any point during the semester you feel like you're struggling to grasp a concept or you're stuck on a homework problem, don't sit and pound your head against the wall in frustration. You send me an email and say, hey, I want to keep on top of this and I'm struggling right now. Can we meet so that you can help me learn this? And that's exactly what we'll do, all right? So next up, you might not like me. I know I seem super cool here, but trust me, you might not like me, and I'm going to go over some of the reasons for that in the next video.